committee, and it's changed like 7 times the name of it. It's called the Tactical Operations Committee now, because that sounds better. But we're tasked with basically putting together best practices for the things that we do, everything that we do. We asked for it. We wanted it. The chief said yes. The chief gave it to us. We were like, yes, we finally get to talk about fire. And he's like, no, not just fire, everything. And we're like, whoa, wait a minute. We want to just talk about fire. It's like, of course you do. That's where your heart's at. But you're going to do it with everything. We don't want to micromanage things, but we want to understand conceptually how do we do things, what goes really well, what doesn't go well. And this is the leader's mindset, because we found out that with our company officers, we had done a little bit of a disservice to some of them. We had left some of them behind and had kind of like a vague way that we brought them up. We take a test, right? And then we get promoted, and then we go to academy for like 6 months, and then we get 6 months worth of training to be a company officer, and we come back, and we're released under another lieutenant, and then we get mentored for a while, and then we get released, just like you guys, right? It's not the same way you get. How do you guys do it? Yeah, no, we did it the same way as everybody else. We basically, one day promoted, we got a hat, there was some training, but there was this idea that we're going to get all this training and go out there. If you rewind it back 15, 20 years, it's even worse than that. And I was able to have a couple of the company officers share with me the reasons that they acted the way they did at fires, and it made sense to me. So we came up with the leader's mindset through that committee, and we talked about what we wanted the company officers and the acting officers to be thinking when they come to work, what they want to be thinking all day long, and how do we get there. So the first bullet is arrive to work every shift expecting a fire. And we had gotten to a point where we weren't doing this. We had gotten to a point where we were, no, we don't go to a lot of fires, and we would say those things, and it would catch on, and then you start lowering your guard and letting your guard down, and then you get the reset button, which is something that maybe doesn't go well, and you kind of bring it back again. We want our officers and our acting officers to arrive at every fire expecting a rescue. Simply, a person inside of a single-family dwelling trapped inside their house shouldn't be an emergency for the fire service, right? It's actually right in our freaking wheelhouse of what we do. It's actually right what we do. So to frame up even today's class, when we do watch the videos, when we do talk about fires, we're always going to talk about single-family dwelling fires with entrapment. It's always going to be with entrapment, every single time. What would you do there? Because that's the game. That's what we do. And if we can't talk about that right there as the norm as opposed to the exception, then we're looking to pick low-hanging fruit first, and that's the worst way to kind of start doing business. It shouldn't throw you off. It shouldn't change a whole lot of things when you do get a report of entrapment. We're going to arrive at every rescue expecting that we can, and we'll save everybody. We're not looking for reasons to not do it. When you get in those opportunities where you can truly make an impact and save somebody's life, it's a very short time frame, very short, compressed time frame to actually do something to make a difference. And if you don't seize those opportunities, that moment, that time frame, will slip right away. Now, we understand doing this job long enough, right? Doing medical calls, you learn real quick that we can't save everybody. So this isn't like some martyr's oath where we're going to walk away beating ourselves up like, oh, we lost, we're failures. No, it's our mindset. We go to a fire and we find out we didn't save everybody. So what do? We take a day off, we reset, we talk about it, we get our minds right again, and we come back to work the next day just like this. Because those experiences can't bring us down. Not having somebody inside of a fire can't change our stance on how we look at them. And everything that I'm talking about matches what? Staffing, the law, and what we're doing. And so we apply all that. We don't break the law at my department, right? We don't do things ignorant. We're not afraid of the word aggressive. We've kind of defined it a little bit. We talk about what it means and what it doesn't mean. And we deal with people on both ends of the spectrum. When we have a fire and it goes well, we talk good about it. We also pick up the things that didn't go well because they're always there. The people that are not meeting the standard, right, or not meeting what we need to be doing, we deal with them in the post-incident well. The ones that went above and beyond and did things that maybe were ignorant and dangerous, we also deal with those. It's easier to deal with things like that on a regular basis than it is to not talk about things, to let things kind of roll away and hope that they don't happen again. Just like arriving at a house fire with entrapment, hope is not a good plan A, right? I hope this goes well. I hope that doesn't happen again, because dinosaurs lay eggs and things will continue to happen if you don't deal with them. The next one was a big one. It was kind of tough for us. Risk a lot to save a lot. We had them all over the wall. We had the signs everywhere. We had books out. Risk a lot to save a lot. Risk nothing to save nothing. The whole thing. We had it laid out. And we started asking, what does this mean? What is a lot? And it's like, is this house a lot? Is a kid in this house a lot? and what level of risk am I going to take? And how do we apply this algorithm to the front yard of a single-family dwelling? How do I sit in front of a house and determine the value of the contents inside this house from the outside? How do I do that? How can I possibly do that? And does a secondary report of entrapment increase the level of risk that I'm willing to take because I'm basing it simply off of value alone? And does that potentially put me emotionally in a position that I'm going to make bad decisions because I'm valuing somebody's life at a higher level than other things, as opposed to just looking things from a foundational aspect and then adding force to that? And we'll talk about what we did instead of risk a lot to save a lot, because it left a lot of people empty. And I asked some seasoned company officers, I said, I've watched you. You make decisions quick. How did you do that? How do you stand in the front yard of a house, and how do you apply that? And we came up empty. Nobody could explain how they actually do that in the front yard other than theory. Nobody could say what they're actually doing. Teach your crews to be excellent, independent of anyone else. One person can change the world of another human. We had a lot of discussions going around about if this, then this, right? If my partner would just PT more, then I could PT more. If my boss was just a better company officer, then we could be a better crew. If my medic didn't suck, just kidding, none of our medics suck. They're all phenomenal. Good Lord. If the chief would do this, then this. So we always started with the excuses about why we can't just do the best that we can do. And so we just kind of said, you know what? Put the mirror in front of you and just focus on you. How can you be better at your job? What can you do? And do you need somebody else to allow you to be better at your job? No, really you don't. And when it comes down to it, when we arrive at these single-family dwellings with entrapment, it really does come down sometime to one person, doesn't it? One single person does something phenomenal. Phenomenal. It seems phenomenal because a lot of other people just simply can't be good sometimes. Or that one person hit the sweet spot at the right time, they saw what they needed to see, they did something, or they got lucky. I've seen all of it happen to where a person's like, I have no idea why I did that. I just did it. One person can change the world of another human. So our goal is to be that one person, right? Our goal is to always be ready and always be available to be used without the excuse of somebody else dragging us down. We work in teams, always. With our battalion chiefs, they're by themselves. They don't have drivers, but everything else is done in teams. Be brilliant at the basics are fast. We had gotten advanced, like I talked about, advanced in everything, from auto extrication to fire behavior to even building construction to our rival reports, type 5 this, and we're like, what is he saying on it? What's flipping through our flip chart? Advanced. So we brought everything back down to basics and then realized, have a good plan A that's built around a good success rate of being good, and then if you have to, add a little bit of force to that and then change it if that's not working. But our goal is to be good, really good at what we're doing. Any of these bullets make anybody nervous as you're watching them, because again, on the committee, even in the committee, that now consists of 3 battalion chiefs, I think 6 company officers, and I think 5 firefighters, representing all the different shifts. Within that committee, it made people nervous because we all have names in our department, and we started thinking of different officers that if they did this, they could be dangerous. Firefighters could be dangerous. All these people could be dangerous. And is this going to create a problem? We knew it couldn't be an email, right? We knew we can't just send this email out or print this off and put it on the wall and say, this is what I want you guys to do. And then somebody comes back and they're like, okay, cool. If we printed that off and put it on every t-shirt and made every employee wear it, would it work? Would it change anything? Nope, not at all. So we knew we had to spend time and do some education and spend time in the room having very, very frank, very honest discussions with literally just the company officers. No battalion chiefs, no actors, no nothing. Just the company officers. And it was very, very, very cleansing for a lot of people. It got passionate. There was some hand slapping on the tables, right? Some finger pointing. It was just like every other fire station or firehouse in the world, and it was real. It was raw. We went through it, and it helped us because people were real honest in there. This is where I learned about what happened to some of the company officers, how they got left behind. We used to have SOPs way back in the day, right? And then we got rid of them with the introduction of IMS and teaching company officers how to be the first one arriving and giving them all the information and allowing them to have that information and feed the whole first alarm. Once we did that change, that knowledge base left. And the more that I've traveled around, I've seen that similar chain at a lot of departments. You used to have SOPs. Those SOPs went away. The goal was to move to training the company officers to be the pinnacle at the incident and to develop people along the way and to deploy those tactical directives at the incident. Except the training that was required to get to that level was never sustainable by any fire department around, minus a couple that are really big and that have good company officer academies that are 8 to 10 weeks and you're truly in the immersion of it. Not my department. We couldn't do that. So we had to reintroduce SOPs to get the knowledge base out there to everybody. In that room, people were honest about being afraid. Being afraid. Lack of knowledge creates fear. Agree or disagree? If you don't have knowledge, you tend to be afraid. I would even say with any blue-collar job, any trade, any craft, whether you're a plumber, electrician, heavy machinery operator, if you don't know what you're doing, you probably shouldn't be doing it. That was another discussion we had to have. If you don't know what you're doing, you probably shouldn't be doing it. And it caused a lot of our people to stop, reflect, and think, okay, I need to relearn how I'm doing it. I need to stop being the broken system that's literally just afraid at every single fire, and I'm trying to make sure that nobody dies. A lot of those feelings that people had all came from a scar or an incident. Somewhere in their fire service career, something happened that didn't make sense to them. It scared them. Somebody almost got killed or something bad almost happened, and they cannot explain why. And then they thought, if it could happen to me, it could certainly happen to my crew. And that creates that fear, that scar that keeps going forward until you get that dealt with, until you go back and revisit it and figure out why. Why is that happening? So we had to take this and spend time with our company officers, then bring our actors in, spend time with our actors. This applies to all of our firefighters and medics too, so we don't leave people out. We want everybody to know this right here. It's an accountability loop. We all talk to each other. And the check of the system is this. Our crews, no matter who they are, firefighter, medic, probie, company officer, battalion, anybody, the reset is to always just think personally. Start personally first, and then ask your crew, ask each other, or ask your CO, ask your BC. I'm an acting BC, so I understand I can speak to some of you guys actors about how crazy that feels like. What am I doing? Where's my engine? I want water at this fire, not a radio. But you ask yourself, if at 10 o'clock, what time is it now? Almost 11? So at 11:30 today, if at 11:30 today I could tell you empirically 100%, period, you're going to get a house fire with entrapment in your first due. Period. Would your morning have looked different? That's it. If your morning would have looked different, you're off, and you got to reset it. I'm like, I was on vacation. Do I know my bunker gloves are in there? I know that's where I keep them, but do I know they're in there? Do I know they're in there? Do I know they're in there? Did I put my hand in there? Do I know they're in there? If I didn't, I'm wrong. It's that easy. If I didn't, I'm wrong. It is so easy to come off that. It's so easy to come off that. We had to be honest with other company officers to simply say, this is exhausting. This wears you out right here, just doing this. Staying at that level makes you so tired. So when you get off the next day, you're tired. You're going to be tired from just doing that. We had to go back and reintroduce the whole department to what is fire. We had a lot of great discussions. You know, we asked the nozzle person, hey, what'd you do in the fire? Well, I went in the fire and I hit it, and then I hit it, and I got some more, and I got some. And it's like, what's that mean? What are you actually doing? What is fire? What is your water doing? What are you doing with it? Well, we aggressively got some more then. It's like, wait a minute. Wait a minute. So we had to back everything off because we realized that we were teaching fire behavior incorrectly. We were teaching our tactical link to expectations incorrectly, and we were leaving people out there with lack of ability to show up at a fire and quickly make a decision and adjust if necessary, because you have to be able to adjust. So what is fire? We broke them down into two categories, just like what UL's doing now. If you read books that have been around a long time, they've done this like back in the 1800s. It's really funny. Like London Fire Brigade, right, has phenomenal SOPs, great books, and maybe sometimes we should get over the tea party and read a little. Maybe. Fuel controlled and ventilation controlled. Fuel control, we look at a video of it. Same thing we did, video. Why? Because our eyes work wonderful, and that link that we all love is seeing it. Fuel controlled, it's not growing, it's not getting bigger because of the building construction and the fuel. Ventilation controlled, it's not getting bigger because of the building construction and the air. That's it. So you really boil them down to two categories, and then you define what they are. Then you talk about which one is our norm and where would we expect them and what we're actually going to do. When we do watch these videos here, we're watching them for fire dynamics, not necessarily tactics. So this isn't, hey, here's a video of this department, it's what you guys should do. Does that make sense? It's where we're looking at the actual fire and saying, what would the building do? I don't keep my videos embedded in my PowerPoint for those tech people that want to know, because I never know which video I'm going to end up showing or how much of it, so I just keep them on a separate folder. But if you want to put them in there for me, no, I wouldn't even let you. Make sure that. Turn the music off so that starts cussing really bad. So ventilation controlled, This fire is not growing because it doesn't have enough air, right? So this one right here, it's not growing, it's not getting bigger because of the building construction, and it's not getting enough air into it. If it was all wide open, if it was a bigger building, it would just burn the fuels out because there's relatively small fuels in a house this size, right? Small box, boxed up tight, ventilation controlled. Then we just break it down to, we don't want to add air without adding water. If you come to this right here and you knock the windows out of it, what's going to happen? Yeah, it's going to get the air it needs. It's going to transition. It's going to become fire, right? Because smoke becomes fire. What's fire become? Nothing is fire. There's no super fire. It's just fire. Yeah, I know. Trick question. Yeah, remember basic? Basic, basic. Smoke becomes fire. Fire becomes out when we get there. Basic, right? What happens if we bolt 4x8, 3 of them side by side, louvered perfectly, open the front door and don't apply water? What happens? Where's my Chucky's at? Huh? Goes out, right? No, it doesn't. It becomes fire. What happens if you knock the windows out, throw a blower to the front door, right? Shazam, right? Yeah. So truck work without engine work, right? Truck work without engine work, or engine work without truck work. Engine work without truck work can be brutal, right? You've been inside the ones where you don't get good tactical ventilation. It's swampy. It's disgusting. It's hot. Brutal. Brutal. But truck work without engine work can be fatal. Absolutely fatal. Because that's what reignites the radiant energy that kills and destroys everything. So if you haven't seen this video here, they open it up. It does work really well. They do a phenomenal job. This is a good department that runs a lot of fires. There's a lot of things to say about the same department, but please take the time to go meet them and spend time with them before we cast judgment on them. They're doing the best they can in the environment they operate in. Some would say doing very, very, very good. When you go to a buttload of fires all the time, you're bound to burn some people. That's just the way it works. Those of us that don't go to a buttload of fires and then we see them, we're like, wow, they seem to have a higher line of duty death rate than anybody else. It's like, well, no, they don't. And they go to a lot of fires, and they shove a lot of people in their fires. They pull a lot of people alive out of fires. What happened when Katrina hit New Orleans? Everybody moved to Houston. So we really, really teach, control the doors, look for the exhaust, create the exhaust we need to. When you open that front door, flow the line, use the reach your stream. Everything has to be tactical. It has to have a link to expectations. And this video is not about vertical ventilation. It's about fire dynamics. It's about understanding the fire dynamics. Fuel controlled, right? Fuel controlled. This fire is being controlled because of the building construction. It's got plenty of air, right? Just simply consuming all the fuel that's in the garage. Fuel controlled, not a big deal. Like, fun. You really can't mess fuel controlled fires up. What happens if you open a door to that garage? What happens? Nothing. Nothing. What happens if you use a straight stream or 30 degree or 42 degrees pulsing intermittently? What happens if you, right? Nothing. It's a fuel controlled fire. But if you go to a bunch of these and you think you're doing really good, or you create training burns with these and you think you're doing really good, then you can create within yourself this intellectual approach that you think you actually understand all of these. One mistake that we were making at these is we would pull up, that's our ultra high pressure hose reel with the Swedish nozzle on it. Kidding, I've got good friends in Sweden. We're tight. One of the mistakes we were making at something like this is that we were not having the target feedback and not having the tactical expectation about where our hose line goes and what it does at this. And this was literally the fire, this style, that redid our whole department and brought us back to a foundation. It's the attached garage fire. This is the one that we use at my department to really hit the reset button to go and say, what are we doing? Yes, we've found an easy way to do this, but how are we actually doing it correctly, and how are we building this thing correctly? All the way up to when we pull a hose line and we begin to extinguish that actual garage fire, we were having guys pointing that hose line up. We were doing that. We were having guys pulling up to this and flowing into the overhead, similar to where if we were inside, right? We're inside, we do that because we don't want to hit it low because it brings it back over our head, right? Right? We wouldn't want to just surface cool down low. We were having guys doing it here. And then you had to ask them, why are you doing that? Why are you cooling up here, trying to cool the gases indirectly up here when you're not worried about that, but you're not putting a lot of water on the surfaces down there? And then we really broke down and looked at fire behavior, fire dynamics, and then we answered some of those questions. The attached garage fire. Why did we use that? We get a buttload of them. It's the most common fire that we get, attached garage fires. You guys ever get attached garage fires? Yeah, because people buy a $200,000 house and park a $6,000 Honda in the garage. Right? How many houses in the garages have smoke detectors in them? Right? So late notification, oftentimes it's the fire department or the neighbor that wakes the people up inside that says your house is on fire. And it's actually a pretty good sized fire. Let me open the garage door for you and help you. So we picked that. Yeah, we picked that because that was our most common one. So we broke it down to those two categories and said at fuel-controlled fires, enjoy yourselves, have a good time. You really can't mess them up. But ventilation controlled, that's 90% of what we do. That's the ones that go really, really well if we make decisions that are based off of the confinement concept and understanding what to do with a ventilation-controlled fire. And it really does start off as basic as do not add air if you're not going to add water. Do not add air if you're not going to add water. If there's air already being added and you have the ability to control it and you can quickly see that area, we will even, on our 360s with our hook, control the door by closing it if we've looked at that area, if we've decided that closing this is going to stop feeding the fire to this area. We make sure the door's not locked, though, because that happened once. So fire behavior. Fuel versus ventilation controlled. Identify intakes and exhausts. Why was it important for us to start looking at intakes and exhausts and really pulling them apart and then tying them back to fire behavior? Because it wasn't taught to us that way. We weren't taught about the intake, the exhaust, what it does, how it applies to this, the different types of energy transfer. We weren't taught these things because it was a little bit boring to be in the classroom and to go over stuff, and sometimes even the instructor was less than motivated to be in the classroom, even saying stuff like, the training division just gave me this, I'm not ready, blah, blah, blah. We're going to quickly go through this and then go outside. So we'd blow all the information off and go outside and have a good time. Understand energy transfer. We're going to really kind of get into that. Critically analyze the speed of the event. You're going to hear some terms I'm going to use, and hopefully you've already heard most of them, but we used to say stuff like GPM versus BTU. Anybody ever heard that statement? GPM versus BTU. The problem with that, when you look at it, is that BTU is a unit of measurement, right? And then GPM is what? A flow rate. So now we're trying to compare things that don't necessarily match up. The BTU, is that really the problem? Is the temperature the problem? We had to look at that. And what is that temperature even being created by? And is that static temperature, is that really a problem? And how long is it even going to be there? And how do we make that decision? So we had to erase some of the old ways that we were taught, critically analyze the speed of the event. So we changed some of our terminology. And now as a company officer, we look at a single family dwelling and we know our crews because we train with them. We see the building and we say, is this event that I'm looking at growing faster than this company can move, engage, and destroy? That's how we judge. Everything's built for us off of, basically 1 3/4 with a 15/16 tip, moved very quickly to the seat of the fire. But that's from the outside. Does that make sense? So that's our normal. We're looking at that. So the rate of the event. Conductive, convective, and radiant. We had to look at how we're teaching those, what it meant, and what was the problem. When you guys look right now as your organization, if you guys are talking about fire behavior, fire dynamics, when you look at conductive, right now currently, how are you teaching that? How are you talking about that? What does that mean in your organization? Conductive energy. You guys, not me. Anybody, help each other. Conductive. What's that? So point to point. So if this table's hot and I touch this table, what's going to happen to my hand? It's going to get hot. The energy's going to transfer. Anybody disagree with that? Conductive. We're touching. It's touching it, right? What about convective? How is convective energy taught and understood? Yes, air currents, heat rises, and then it does what? When it reaches its ceiling? Spreads, and when it reaches its next, then it does what? So it sounds like a very predictable thing, right? So convective is predictable, goes up, moves out, comes down, right? So when we talk about the unit of measurement, the BTU or the temperature, I use Fahrenheit because I'm from here. I don't use Celsius. I drink liters sometimes, but I don't even know that I am. So if I say 500 degrees, is that conductive, convective, or radiant? If I say that in your organization, what is it? What's that? Because in my organization, we were like, huh? That's got no, okay. Are we going outside soon? Right? This is where it gets a little bit. Yeah, could be. So what creates the temperature and what are the hazards? So now tactically bring it back to us. All this has to do with being inside of a building, a single family dwelling with entrapment. So now how does this relate? So if I'm a firefighter and I'm coming up to a single family dwelling with entrapment, how do I not get hurt by conductive energy? How do I save people in peril from conductive energy? How do I do that? Don't touch hot stuff without your stuff on, right? And try not to let them lay next to hot stuff for very long. But more than likely, we're beyond that if we're there, right? Because they actually call us after the fire. We don't schedule ours. So we're late when we get there. Back to my frustration about the first-in company officer spending a whole lot of time slowing everything down. We're always late. We never get called early. So convective. How is it a problem? How can it hurt me as the firefighter? And how is it hurting the citizen trapped inside of their house that they pay for, that they pay taxes for this incredible resource that slingshots in there called the fire department? How is convective energy getting us and hurting us? How? Air. The air, right? The air that goes up, that goes out, that comes down, right? Radiant energy. How is radiant energy taught in your department? How does it get transferred off, though? Because I agree this. Everything that has energy transfers the energy off. So now it's how. So this one transfers it off by touching it. This one transfers off because it heats up the air. The air moves up, across, and then down. Radiant energy.
Linear.
Say it again. Linear. Okay. Anybody else want to add to what he's saying? What does that mean to us? So if that right over there in the corner, that little underwear drawer thing over there is on fire, is that not underwear drawer? I don't. At my department, that's what those are. Maybe a file cabinet, I guess. Sorry. If that's on fire, how does that send radiant energy out? Line of sight. Does that make sense? Line of sight. So as it grows, the radiant energy is transferred line of sight. Why does it help when we get shielding? You've been inside hot fires and you're like, oh my gosh, and then you move behind the door, you're like, ah. What changed? Did the convective energy change? No, line of sight. You took line of sight off of you. That's it. Radiant energy is line of sight. So out of those three, conductive, convective, and radiant, which one kills and destroys? Which one? Radiant. Does that make sense? It's line of sight, destructive energy that comes off. And what do we have with our hose lines? Line of sight. You see the dance? That's the tactical link to this fire behavior in engine companies. It's line of sight. If you use distance and shielding and positioning, use the door, open the door a little bit, stay behind it, hit it, cool the leading edge of any potential heat, crush it, drive it back. We don't care about water damage in my department. Maybe you guys do. We have ServPro. They are top shelf. They can dry everything out and unburn nothing. So we stay in our lanes. We work together. They're on our second alarm. Not really, but that's what we call them. So radiant energy, that's how it gets transferred. If you're watching some of the UL stuff that's going on, the experiments that are being built, if you're watching what's happening, you can see this energy when you look at the pictures of what's going on. You can see how they let a fire grow in a room. The room completely got involved and then went down a hallway, out an exhaust, out a window. And as it walked past the other rooms, one of them had a door open. And there was a sweeping arc inside of there of just destruction. Was that convective energy that walked in there for a minute and hung out and then met a wall and came back? No, because that's not how it works. Right? Was it conductive? It touched stuff? No. It's radiant energy. As it was roaring past, it's seeing it and it's destroying it because that's how radiant energy works. And if we don't understand that, is that a problem? We had guys that wouldn't squirt smoke. Ever heard of that? Don't squirt smoke. It's like, where's the radiant energy at, boss? It's like, well, over there in the corner. Be like, this isn't training burn. This is real deal. How are we getting the stuff melted off of us? Right? Not our hair. That happens with stress. So we need to know what the threat is, right? And break it down to the threat and then tactical links to expectations on these threats. Remember when I said risk a lot to save a lot? We basically took that away from our front yard and just said we need to become intelligent, we need to become educated, we need to make decisions based off of what can we be in. When I pull up with my company, I look at a single family dwelling and I say, can we be in there right now? Yes or no? Yes or no? Not maybe, not let me go see, yes or no. Now, I will make more decisions as I come up, but I start off with knowing, Yes or no, right? And then I get closer, and I start looking for certain things. But that's my first thought. Can we be in there right now? Yes or no? Yes, we go. Because we have 4 people. We meet the law. We have a plan. We have people coming. I'm not talking about the exceptions, right? We can do the what-ifs later. We're talking about the norm. So we go. If I can't be in there, we don't go. We make the building behave. Tactical ventilation, crush it with our streams, then we go. If it's beyond degradation, the building construction is coming down, then we don't go. I actually don't care what anybody says. And that sounds cold-hearted, and I'd love to discuss it with anybody, and I realize that that doesn't sound great when you write an article, but honestly, when mom comes to me and points to a room and says, my baby's in there, and I've already decided we can't be in there, what does that change for me? Because it's not going to grab my emotions. Do I look at that room and say, nobody could survive that room? Well, I don't know. I haven't been in there yet. I'll let you know in a minute. That's what I'll do. I'll tell you if the victim could survive when I get in there, because I don't know out here. Now, as a battalion chief, do I think a little bit more about that stuff as I'm coming in? Yeah, because I'm back further in the alarm, and I don't have anything else to do. So I do start looking at things like that, like, okay, is this working? Is this making sense? Is this still worth the amount of risk that that first-in company decided to make as we pile more people in here? Is it still working? Is beyond where they're at, is that area maybe still worth it? Is that area still within what we're doing? Can we be in there? Because now we're starting to bring it back to a fine line. Remember the employees I said that wanted a VES after FDIC? And I'm not kidding. I mean, it's funny. I've gone to the class, get excited, try this, like, it didn't work. Dang it. Wish I wouldn't have done that in front of everybody. When you come back, when you get those things, when you get the victim survivability report, when you read or don't read them, that's the worst case, does that change how you make decisions? Could that bleed into the front yard? And how do we recover if we get some bad information? We had to talk to each other in reality. Single-family dwellings with reported entrapment in your guys' first due in your agency today. What's the worst thing that you guys could do in your first alarm? What's the worst thing? And this is clean room. You guys can talk to each other and me. I'm not going to get offended. What's the worst thing? What's that? Nothing. Nothing is right up. Doesn't that just piss you off sometimes? Nothing. Ever been second or third behind nothing? Oh. And then get told you're the problem? I'm like, No, I didn't say that. But, so nothing. What else? What else could we do besides nothing? That's reported, confirmed, single-family dwelling with entrapment. Nothing. Okay. Crappy engine company work. Is that preventable? Yep. Amen. Anybody disagree with that statement that it's preventable? And don't tell me you don't have enough time. I'm just kidding. Maybe you don't. I don't know. I haven't even worked here yet. So we got nothing, poor engine company skills. We just add any skills, any tactical skills that first alarm to include command. If any of those skills fall apart, right? What's the worst thing? Is that the worst thing though? Because what if a good engine comes behind them quickly? Can they clean that up? Yeah. High fives, take their line, right? Say, feed that. What's the worst thing we can do?
Hurt or kill ourselves.
Say that again.
Hurt or kill ourselves.
Any battalion chiefs in here? Chief, question for you. If you guys arrive to a single-family dwelling with entrapment and a mayday gets activated, will you recover to focus on the victim in your first alarm? I won't. Yeah, basically saying if somebody in this first alarm activates a mayday, where do our resources go? I can tell you for me, they go to the mayday. Sorry. I got a bigger problem now. I don't want it to be like that. You know what I didn't want? I didn't want crappy hose work. I didn't want bad decisions. I didn't want uneducated. But we're here at the same fire, and it happened. A mayday has been activated. Where does your energy go? I won't be able to refocus my energy back to the victim, at least until my second alarm. So if we arrive at a single-family dwelling fire with entrapment, if out of ignorance we do something that causes the activation of a mayday, that's the worst thing we could do in my department. Worst thing. So we had to make sure that we understood where that transition came across. Emotional decisions. I was blessed to talk to a guy from Baltimore about a basement fire that they had. Engine, truck, because they have like 90,000 trucks and not as much engine companies. Yeah, it's different. There's some positive to it. There's also some negative to it too. When two trucks get there with no engine, they still do truck work. They still do truck work. They have to because there's people inside. So it's interesting. But they had an incident where they got kids in the basement of a basement fire. Truck gets there first. They open the door, go in, close the door, go inside. They didn't call it door control. They had not read the UL study. They actually just based off experience understood that adding air without adding water is not a good thing. Institutionally, no, they don't understand it. But individually, absolutely. The engine gets there almost the same time. They didn't pull a line because there's multiple people. So they would need help too. What do you think starts to happen at this point? Do you think the engine company kept the door closed? What are engine companies not as good at? Door control, right? Because we're like, should we open? Actually, some of us passionate, like, you will never shut a door behind me. I've heard good engine people say that. Be like, well, then you better have a hose line. So in looking at that right there, big organization, activates a mayday, can't recover to focus on the citizen. You ever seen that happen with Chicago, Boston, LA, all these departments, right? Even locally here. You can't recover. So we had to educate and talk to those employees that just got back and say, how do we keep ourselves out of that? Radiant energy is the key at fire behavior, fire dynamics. We're going to watch a video, look at how it grows. Any questions on it so far? And again, if it doesn't make sense, if you disagree, it does not hurt my feelings. I'm going to go home happy today no matter what you say. Not because just because I base my happiness off other stuff. So this is a test. Test they did in Europe. This has basically been my daughter's room the whole time. As two daughters, I can tell you it doesn't get better. Yes, that's her right there. It's never going to happen, Dad. What do you know about fires? Oh, my gosh. That's why I drink in the morning sometimes. So we're going to watch this fire grow, start to off gas, right? Start to give off a little bit of energy, and you're going to watch it transition through, and we're going to draw it out. You guys talk about his apartment? I stayed in his apartment last night. He wasn't there, though, so it was clean. Yeah, there's the Veil of Doom. It actually is in his room, just like that. So since we love our kids, we stuff their rooms full of stuff that's flammable, and we never tell them to close the door, right? Is door control something new or something old in the fire service? Do you guys have a spring on your door over there? It is the cops that wrote that article. Cops said, you guys should. You think the fire service knew that at some point and said that probably should be closed. You used to have teaching that said, sleep with your doors closed. Anybody remember that? And then we had stickers that put on the window. What the stickers say? Tot finder. Does that sound like VES? Yeah, not new. So right now, what's happening in this room? It's beginning. It's moving up. It's seeking what? Where is that going? The fire is wanting air, but where is it going as an exhaust? It wants to get to low pressure, right? This is high pressure, it wants to go to low pressure. So from you guys, as this goes through, where's the radiant energy coming from? Where is it going to, and how far? Right now. Is it going towards that wall back there? Is it going up? Is radiant energy going up above that? Is radiant energy coming towards us? How far you think? 6.7. 6.7 meters or feet? I couldn't. So it's coming out, right? What if you're down here? No, because it's shielding. Shielding, right? Where are we coming? The fire department. Front door. Front door gets open. This is wanting to come where? No windows are open. So now where's this fire coming? Yeah, where's the fresh air? Coming with you. This is actually good, isn't it? If we could knock a window out of this room, wouldn't that be better, though? And then go that way? Yeah. But there's no windows in this room because it's a test. Those are expensive. So what if you had an institutional don't squirt smoke policy? Could this become a problem at some point? And as a father, yes, I agree, this girl caused this fire. Well, what about a brother in the next room over? Is it his fault? No. He's asleep because he stays up late. He's got his door closed, which is good. You think she's got her door closed? No, because she doesn't listen. So we're 1 minute 30. One minute and 40. And what are we seeing? We're seeing the smoke come down to a nice level. It's now rolling out, dipping down. Now where's your radiant energy starting to come from also? These arrows are going to come out further, right? Still's going up. Superheat this. As the fire starts to go this, can you see the flames that are at the very top through this black smoke? No, we all know that, right? You've heard the term black fire. That gets very, very, very bad. At what point does this smoke layer up here become so hot that it starts to push radiant energy straight down? Relatively early. A lot earlier than maybe we thought. What happens in the doorways? It dips down. Why does it dip down? Because it has to. For it to leave this door, what does it have to do? It has to go actually below and go out. But that same level of energy is dipping down. Why is it that you get into a door and it's hotter in the door, right? That's the exit at this point. It's coming down. It's hammering on you. If we're crawling in looking for the seat of this fire, do we have a problem? If we're barely throwing water up there, is this a problem? Are we worried about water damage at this fire? If you have a problem with water damage, worry about it. I mean, if you get to a point where you're like staying outside and you're flowing all kinds of stuff in, you're like, yeah, that probably is not a good idea. But if you're going in and using your water to stop the radiant energy, to stop stuff and people from getting destroyed, that's good. So now this is all the way down the hallway, right? It's all the way down the hallway, but you can't see it. It's above. And if we're coming in below it and we're feeding fresh air in and we're not cooling this, we're part of the problem. And this is where even some discussions, we had to change a couple things at our department because we had some tactical links to expectations that weren't producing the fruit that we had wanted them to produce. We had very early on talked about using the nozzle as a, almost like an investigative tool. To whether you're using it as a fog or this, to throw water up to see if the water comes back down and try to make these determinations. Do I believe that a person in the fire service can reach that level? Yes, I do. Do I believe that people inside of my organization can reach that level? I know that. Do I think as a norm that that's the platform to start off with in my organization? No, because it has caused some dysfunction to us. If our people come through that door, you guys run 15/16 on your... Okay, so we'll just use that same thing as us. 15/16, how many GPM a minute? M a minute? Is that 2? Yeah. So if you come in the door and you throw open water up to see how much comes back down, how long do you leave your nozzle open when you do that? Standard in your department. Is it 5 seconds? Is it 10 seconds? Perfect. Yep. And that's where it comes into how much is coming back down, how do you read it, what do you know? We want our nozzle operators to understand that only one tool on our first alarm cools. One tool. We don't use it for anything but cooling. Go ahead.
To me, it seems like in the videos and stuff that you've shown that it's actually more of a convective transfer of the fire and the heat more than radiant, because that's what's going up, coming down, and it's forcing out the doors is actually a convective force more than the radiant force. It seems like radiant's more of a byproduct of the convective.
Convective is what moves it.
Right.
Convective is the air current, right? So that's what carries the fuels. But what is in the fuels that is causing the destruction? Is it the convective movement of it? Because that's, even if it's 500 degrees here, can you go 2 feet below it and get destroyed by the convective? Or can you go 2 feet below it and get destroyed by the radiant? Because radiant has the reach.
I guess you'd say radiant is the destructive force, but the convective is what carries it.
Yeah. Convective is the area, and then the wind, if you add tactical ventilation, anything in the air current will carry the energy in the fuel package. But the destructive thing that we need to be looking out for and destroying is any and all radiant energy. That's what's going to kill us, and that's what's destroying everything in the house. For it to be convective all the way to the floor to destroy everything, you know how much radiant energy would have to be inside of that? A ton of radiant energy inside of it. And we'll get bigger and better fires as we go along. We're starting off with little ones. Anybody seen the slide here? Heat release rate versus BTU. It's a change that kind of went along, a change that happened. They got away from the GPM versus the BTU, right? So heat release rate, the rate that this fire is developing, the rate that it's taking off. And these are the slides that it actually used to start teaching this. On the left is what they call the traditional fire development curve. It's something that basically is a campfire. You'll never see this inside of a single-family dwelling. Something that grows, goes through its phases, then goes down like that. The one on the right is called typical fire development in the modern fire environment. But that slide to the right is already outdated and already prehistoric for what we need to understand about what's happening. This is the realistic for what we face. We have ignition, it grows, it plateaus out, it starts to dip down. Then it gets air and intake somewhere, could be from the neighbor, could be from a window failing, could be from the fire department, anything that creates an intake, and fresh air comes in and allows this thing to take off again. Experiences flashover, ventilation-induced flashover at some point, goes up, and even inside that small compartment can plateau again and take off. Then we open up a second exhaust. In this video it's or in this slide it's could be just another window failing. Moves up again. This will continue on. If we didn't add suppression right there, this just continues on until it eventually gets enough and transition and slowly burns the house down. This is the progression rate. And the reason it's important for us to look at it like this is because we need to know when we arrive, are we arriving to down here, this one that we're opening up on, or this one that we're opening up on? We used to think in our department that we'd show up and a window's failed, right? Already, that it's already ventilated. We even said that. Fire's already vented, self-vented, we said. But we realized that's actually just up there. So the rate this thing can take off now, because it's already got a ventilation point once it gets an intake, is much faster than the one that shows up that's all boxed up. So this is out of the UL slides. Way back here is suppression. If you had to basically take everything that they said in that first study and said, hey, fire department, what do you guys think about taking suppression and pushing it back as close to possible is arrival? Does that sound reasonable? That was the original message that came out, that somehow got changed and moved and all kinds of stuff added to it. So all that brings us to our fire attack mindset. We want our people knowing, it's written in our document, that the fire that we face is ventilation controlled, operating at 50% efficiency, that every opening will increase the fire's efficiency of how it's burning. The building has a basement until proven otherwise, because that's where the line of duty deaths and the near misses are happening, on the exhaust side above the problem. Not necessarily always from falling through. Falling through is a horrible thing to do. But getting trapped in an exhaust side is a horrible place to be. And it's something that you can actually know you're doing before you do it. So when you actually do it, it should be a decision based off a series of things you've seen. The fire is extended till proven otherwise. And our goal is to show up and establish dominance over the hallways and the stairwells. That's our goal. We can keep doing that until we win everything, but that's our goal. If we can get there and just crush the hallway and the stairs, we can create an environment to build a reinforcement plan and a search plan behind. We can create and build an environment that we can do simultaneously with VES from the outside. If that's our engine company operation, that's single-family dwellings, this is scalable and this works for us. We don't run heavy staffing. Sometimes we don't even run engine companies. We run engine couples, 2 people. So sometimes we don't even have our third on there. So I'm not talking about some heavy staff department. This is us. We can run 3, sometimes 4 when we have a bunch of people hired, but we can shut a station down and go all the way down to 2 people on all our engines, 2 people on our medic units, and we'll send 4 engines, 2 medic units, our air truck, and a battalion on our first alarm to go deal with the incident. Fast water, something that got me interested when the UL study came out and started talking about the fast water concept. Do a little research into it. And oddly enough, fast water has always been the goal of the engine company. I have yet to meet an engine company who says, no, we're actually the slow water or medium water. Everybody wants to get water fast. How you do it, that's up to you. How much control do we have over that? We talked about it earlier. How much control do we have over our ability as an engine company to deliver fast water? We have a lot of control. Are we using that control that we were given and blessed with to create an environment that this can be done correctly? We had to change some things. I know in my company, if I go more than 10 shifts without doing a hands-on drill of how we would perform at a first in fire, I know we start to get off a little bit. I know if I'm at 30 days, we're borderline starting to fall apart. So as a company officer, I never go beyond 10 days. I tell my boss if I make it to 30. But more than likely, my guys have already told my boss because that's how we operate. Because I know that. The first line, the second line, which line are we pulling, where's it going to go, and why? So as we look at videos, as we looked at pictures, the way we do stuff in our department is these are the questions we ask. We don't just randomly throw out things. We say, which line are you going to pull, where's it going to go, and why are you doing it? Because we've got choices, 1 3/4, smooth bore, 1 3/4, fog nozzle, 2.5 off the rear, extended attack with different options. And everything, right, is based off of staffed and it being offensive. Why are we defensive at fires? Basically, in my department, it's because the fire dynamics are beyond what we can tolerate, right? So we're defensive in the minute, in the first, and we move in there. Or the building construction is beginning to disassemble in a way that's not healthy for us to be in. Really, outside of that is all these other things. It could be a meth lab, could be an explosion, all these could be's. But realistically, when I look at it, why would I be defensive? Fire behavior, fire dynamics is beyond what I can tolerate, or the building construction is starting to disassemble. So as you're watching the videos, as you're watching stuff, especially when you see defensive fires, you can ask yourself why, which one of those two categories are keeping them outside? But do we all know that there is a third category that creeps in there called fear-based fire tactics, that if you don't have an understanding of that stuff, it's easier to keep back and pull back and not move forward? Confinement versus extinguishment. We have it in our written document that single-family dwellings, multifamily dwellings, we believe in the confinement concept because it's a dwelling, right? So we have dwelling fires and non-dwelling fires. At non-dwelling fires, we'll jump to the bottom, we use extinguishment. So non-dwelling fires, commercial fires, strip malls, restaurants, all that stuff, we simply pull a large line to the closest access to the fire and we crush it and hammer it from the door, and then when the building and the fire behavior gives us permission, we begin to systematically move in and destroy everything. We don't use confinement at non-dwelling fires because we're not staffed to run the same way at a commercial fire as we do at single-family dwellings, and we're probably telling our bosses that we don't know the difference if we act similarly. Confinement is actually based off of RECIO, and RECIO is a good thing. You don't have to change your paperwork. It still actually works really, really well. If you're afraid of new acronyms, look into them, find out what they mean, and you'll find out that they're actually very similar. Where is the fire not? And our goal is to get there fast. Because what is consistent with where the fire is not? People alive. People alive, right? We use the building construction to help with confinement. And that's why we picked the attached garage fire. Because to understand what's happening in an attached garage fire, you have to understand fire behavior and you have to understand building construction, don't you? Anybody here do building construction? Building trades? I don't, so I'm going to say lots of words that don't make sense. So, cool. If you know people that do, you can understand that they have a knowledge base that could feed your department and bring you all to a great level. Sometimes they just don't talk very much. Again, establish dominance over the hallways and stairs, and we have to reinforce almost at every single fire that the fruit of confinement is the extinguishment, because we put bedroom fires out fast, and then we start what-ifing it. Well, what if we'd have gone through this door instead of this door? It would have been faster. It's like, well, yeah, but what if that bedroom fire had walked into the hallway? What if it was bigger? What's the sustainable plan that we can deliver consistently to search behind, to add force to if we need a second line, or to conduct VES opposite with door control? Exterior attack. We have to break it down right and talk about those things. This is where the pendulum swung in the fire service. I don't know if you paid attention to it, right? Some of the UL stuff came out and people said, oh, the UL said, do this. It's like, really? Did they say that? Was it in the study? Was it in the 406 pages? No, it wasn't in the 406 pages. Was it in the 6-page executive summary? It snuck into that one, yeah. Was it in the conferences and the kitchen tables all over the world talking about UL said this anecdotally? That's what happened. Exterior attack, it's simply fast water from the outside. That's all that it is, right? When does it work? When does it not? I had to make sure in our department that if we thought the interior attack was always the answer, that there was a level of ignorance that danced in that area. If we thought the exterior attack was always the answer, we had to realize there's a level of ignorance that dances with that, right? So we had to clean up that ignorance and talk about when will we do this. If it is being used as a reset, because that's a word that had been thrown and associated with it, a reset the fire. If it is being used as a reset, then it must be followed up immediately by an interior line. Because if you're flowing from the outside and you don't have a plan and a line that's moving inside quickly, it's just defensive. It's not a bad word, just say what it is. And so we basically cleaned up our terminology even. If we do flow from the outside, we actually don't even say it over the radio. We just actually do it. And then by the time the other company gets there, it's already done, and everything's already moving forward. Be cautious of no transition. In our county, we actually had it written into our TAC ops at one point. That got erased was the term transitional. And it was just an added word to something. The transitional attack, is it offensive, is it defensive? It didn't fit in a strategic mode. It was a tactic, but somehow it almost got field promoted to strategic, and it's like, that's not how that works. So it's an exterior attack. But be cautious of no transition. If crews aren't moving inside, find out why. Tools, flows, and techniques are finite. That's important to understand. Everything's not equal. So we had to break it down for us in the exterior attack that same grade, door or window, an 1 3/4 smoothbore will have a good effect on a room fire, bedroom. Whether you take it through the building or to the window, an 1 3/4 smoothbore will have a good effect on that compartment. Right? So we had to know that, because if I arrive with 2, then what pickle am I in? I got 2 people. I need to not be afraid to pull to that window, right? But if I arrive with 4, I need to know that door is the answer, because that's where I can slingshot straight into it and cover everything else. Is what you're looking at coming out of that window that you're thinking about an exterior attack at, is it the fire room? Is it fire venting through a room? Or is it vent point ignition? Because all 3 will behave differently when you apply water to them. But all 3 look very similar from the outside. Does that make sense, the difference in those? If this room right here is a room, and it's on fire, and fire is coming out of there, if you hit that window out there, you will affect this compartment. If this door's open, and I'm over here and this room's on fire, and it's coming through this room and coming out of there, it's going to have a different effect. It will cool that, what you see, but it will not have a great effect over here. Could that cause confusion to a crew that quickly goes in the front door after the fire has been reset to find something that's actually moving towards them really fast? UL study on pushing fire. In our department, we had to actually talk about this openly. We had to actually pull it away from the kitchen tables, actually get it out there, talk about it, make sure everybody understood, because it had gotten some big momentum, and we needed to know the answers. So we'll talk about it here. And when we answer, it's yes, and then there's no. There's these 2 categories. That's how we answer some of these questions. Can you push fire? Yes or no. Then we can talk about the reason behind it. Does that make sense? Because we got to talk about the whys. So who in here thinks that you can push fire? Who in here thinks you can push fire? Okay, cool. Who in here thinks you can't push fire? 3 people didn't raise their hand. See? That's how I notice stuff. Oh, I already did. It's 3 slides ago. It's like he set the class up like this. It's his class. Dang it. So now we talk about why, because this is where the discussion happens. If you let it stop right here in your firehouses, in your kitchen tables, or out drinking, you're giving up on each other. Don't ever give up on each other. We got to talk about this through. Anybody ever been inside and seen what they would call, as a blue-collar worker, fire get pushed? Anybody ever seen it? You guys are lucky if you haven't seen it. Yeah. It's real. Now, scientifically, what is it called? We'll talk about that. But so everybody said no. Tell me why you say no.
Well, when we talk about pushing fire, we're worried about fire spread.
Tell me about your accent first. No, just kidding. I already know.
We're worried about pushing fire spread to another part of the building, or we're worried about pushing fire into civilian.
So is it going to be a sustained event that moves to another room and stays there? Or is it going to be a brief event that comes in like a wrecking ball and then moves back out? Anybody else on the no category? Why can't you push fire? You can literally say because we use smoothbore.
The fuel and the byproducts in the smoke, and that's what's moving the fire?
I just noticed you're using the word fire a lot. So if you say you're moving the fire, that's actually...
I'm not saying he said that.
Oh, okay.
I said we're moving the smoke and all the fuel that's in the
Cool.
fires off the equipment, and that's what we're moving.
Anybody else? And I'm not saying these are right or wrong. Listen to them. I think it's a phenomenal discussion.
Well, you don't even need a hose line to move fire. You can move it by opening the door, putting a PPE can there, open it.
Yeah, because I just said, can you push fire? Not even like hose lines. I didn't say hose lines. Yeah. So what is it that's moving it then? You guys ever heard of NIST? Yeah. Right? You know what UL is, right? Yeah, UL's over here, NIST is over here. So this is a video from NIST. They did a great series of burns. This is the one video that didn't get released in the study. Weird. It's an action experiment, okay? So it's not a clean experiment, it's an action experiment. Simply saying they're going to burn a place down. We've got money and time to thermocouple it and to video it and study it. An action experiment. We're going to do an experiment based on actions, not a scientific parameter that we're going to see the data on. So off to the right, you're going to have an exterior attack with a tight stream, not moved very much, right? Still moving it more than perhaps people would recommend. Then off to the left, you're going to see a fog stream opened up more. The layout of the building is, here's the door, move a little bit to the right, and there's the stairs. Here's the stairs. So here's the video, here's the tick, here's the video, here's the tick. Does that make sense on the layout now? Okay. So watch the stairs, because that's where the problem would be, right? We see air movement a little bit, but not a lot. When he shuts down, I want you to watch the stairs and see the inrush of air that comes up to feed the fire. See it just taking off up there? Why is that happening? Because it's growing again now. That's the reset. The reset is over. But it's growing again right now. Now to the left, watch the stairs again, because that's where so-and-so is trying to escape. What's that called?
Just related to the different amount of cubic
Air. Yeah, it's simply what happened. There was an exhaust, and we took the exhaust and turned it around, and it has to go somewhere else. It has to, right? Pressure differentials shift, and it goes somewhere else. So did it ever get discussed all the way down to what's good, what's bad, what makes it better, right? That's the key at our department. We had to kind of bring everything back and say, okay, when we arrive, what is our job? Our job is to make it better, right? Make it better. So what can we do that makes it better? Okay, that's good over here. Now, is there anything we can do that makes it worse? We actually do this in EMS, too. You guys ever, it's like, what makes it better, what makes it worse? Same thing. So the video to the right, does that make it better? The video to the left, did it make it better? Did it make it worse? Did the first video make it worse? Second video made it worse? If you guys were going up those stairs, yeah, would you have a conversation afterwards? Be like, hey, that's not good. Any questions on this video right here?
Albeit that was very brief. I mean, yeah, it
Yes.
was, but it was short and immediately returned back to an open stairwell, and that room's being cooled by that other one.
So absolutely. So what benefited from doing the one on the left? What did you gain from it? Oh,
Probably cooled that room to the point that maybe it didn't become the whole top half of the house. I don't know, gave your interior line time to get to the top of the stairs.
could you have done the same thing with a straight stream?
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, line choice or nozzle selection may have been better there, but the outcome wasn't horrible.
And remember, what we're talking about today is single-family dwelling fires with entrapment. So if a citizen was on the stairs, would that change your decision?
Sure.
Okay, because when we respond, we're looking at single-family dwelling fires with entrapment, and we have to look at them. If you arrive at 2 people, the exterior attack is the way to go, but we had to make sure that everybody knew the tools are finite and that we need to know how to use them. So we pull to the window, we'll get close, smooth bore, hold it still, and not even move it around. Just hold it, and then shut it down, and then move inside really quickly. We basically eliminated what could happen to the left, but the problem is when the first stuff came out, people thought the stuff on the left couldn't happen. Couldn't happen. And when you go back and look at the very first study, right, on horizontal ventilation and legacy versus contemporary, when you look at every single slide and every single video, what you saw right that never happened in the study. Never. So then would it make sense if we were all in the same room and we did that study? Would we also think that maybe it couldn't happen? It happened, though. It happened. And these are the things that helped us grow. The UL committee that I'm on right now, I fly back to Baltimore next week. The committee that we're on right now, we learned and we're growing from this. Because in the beginning, tiny little things happen and you don't see the fruit of them down the line. You're like, oh, I wish we would have just waited and said, hey, can we do another study on this instead of adding it in right now? Does that make sense? The problem with the tick is it just shows what? Surface temperature right there? And so what do we see on, I mean, with gas cooling and surface temperature, they really don't correlate. You got to have thermal couplings in the room. And so this is just an action experiment to see what happened on the surface temperature. And so it changed a little bit, right? But not enough to really pull any information out of. It's more of a visual acuity to say, hey, this just happened. You guys run compressed air foam at all? This is the video that I got when I went over to Europe. When the UL study first came out, I had the opportunity to speak with a lot of people from other nations about it, and their very first statement was simply, it's incomplete. It's incomplete. More study needs to be done. These are arguably probably the most educated fire service in the world. The Swedish Fire Service, they have about a 2-year apprenticeship program where they learn everything before they ever touch a hose line or go in. Very, very brilliant. There's some downsides to that. So if you watch the front door there, down and to the right. So the front door is open, right? It's easy to say if the front door wasn't open, that wouldn't have happened. But for me in my department, I knew that that's where my attack team was masking up and going in. So they could be anywhere from outside to that fire room when this happened. And I needed to know imperatively, can you make this happen? And I was hearing, no, you can't. So if I think, no, you can't, and I do this, and then it happens, is that a problem? Did you guys all see what happened in the beginning? So door's right there. It pushes down on it. So what if you did this with just a smooth bore? No air, no foam, none of that stuff. What would happen? What would happen, you guys? It would knock the fire down. It would do exactly what you want it to do. For us, because of elevation and grade, like I said, same grade, same compartment, door, window, everything's equal, 1.75 inches. For us, that would get a 2.5 with a smooth bore simply because of the elevation change, because we want to guarantee that we're going to thump enough water into that room to instantly explode all over the whole room, not change the air track around the other way, shut it down, and not delay that 1.75 inches from going through the front door. And how many people does it take to flow 2.5? One person. Does that make sense? So elevation and grade, for us, change that decision making about that line. Department in Northern California, or Central California, Fresno. This is garden style, but it just shows about the fire behavior, line placement. Anybody have a problem with squirting that smoke? What's that smoke going to become? Right. Intakes versus exhausts. If you have the opportunity to flow water through an intake versus an exhaust, understand what those choices will do. Everything is not equal when it comes to that. And I'm an engine company officer that uses interior attack and exterior attack. I'm not afraid to use either one of them. So it turns to fire. Now back here, we're going to watch the attack line. Below grade, looking up. It's a garden-style apartment. The stairs are to our left right there, to an open door that goes right in. You can tell all of these things simply by understanding the ability to look at the compartment, look at the building construction, look at the fire behavior, and read the smoke coming out of it. He's flowing into an exhaust, right, into a compartment. Do you think that in that compartment the temperatures are decreasing? What do you think? I would suggest they're decreasing a lot. I would suggest that scientifically in that room right there, that compartment, those temperatures are decreasing a lot. Anybody disagree? Obviously we can't thermocouple this, but conceptually understanding how that works, then what happens when you take that line off? Because it's one of those rooms that's feeding through a room, that room goes right back up. If that was just the fire room, what would happen? It would stay down. Where's the intake at? Do you have to go inside? No. If you have the door is the top of the stairs. You see what I'm saying? So to get to the intake, to put your nozzle in the intake, do you need to go inside of this fire? You see what I'm saying? So that's what I'm saying. If we're going to be outside, I agree. If this is beyond your ability to be in there, I'm cool with that. But if you have a choice to make, and you can find the intake, you will see your water much more efficiently used in an intake than in an exhaust, right? That's why I'm saying it's not equal. If you did this with a 2.5 with a smooth bore, would you see better fruit? Yeah, absolutely. This is literally why the grade change, the elevation, all that stuff fits into our algorithm. If we are going to pull an 1 3/4, it just guarantees that that 1 3/4 goes to the door. We don't have to go in, but it goes to the door. Now this is all on fire again. I've got the video down, and the backstory on this is it's a younger guy just got out of the academy. Sometimes we do a disservice and we tell people, oh, you're going to go with those guys. They're aggressive. They're dangerous. Don't do this. Don't do that. And now he's literally looking back at his partner. He's telling him, just go up there, please, before the rest of the first alarm gets there, please, and put this fire out, please. Stop doing this, please. You're going to watch him do what he thinks is the march of death because he walks up those stairs while flowing an 1 3/4. Is that not difficult? He is scared to death right now. He's thinking, I'm about to die. But you watch. It's an exhaust at the top, but an intake at the bottom. You'll see the change. As soon as he turns the corner and puts that nozzle just inside the intake, he breaks the back of this entire event. Same nozzle you've been watching for 4 minutes. He's about to turn the corner, and you'll watch the fresh air from his left rush in. Here he is. Turns right now. Right now. Broke the back of the fire. Heat is being destroyed. And now when we pan back, from left to right, look at the fresh air blowing in. Because science says that has to happen. That has to happen. So now back it up 4 minutes, and we have a choice to make. Where does that first line go? Right. Or we pull a bigger line and do what we were doing. But you can't take the same line and think that everything's equal.
Scott, what did you mean by, or what is the relevance of you saying the fresh air has to rush in scientific? I mean,
From the cooling, the pressurization, the intake. It's an intake, right? The bottom of the door is an intake. So as he stops the top from an exhaust, why is that fresh air going in more now through this exhaust? There's no heat.
So that's telling me I'm on the right path.
Right. Here's a video that will show that we did for fire engineering. And again, just a disclaimer, this is not how we fight fire. We would never sit under flames. We do squirt smoke. These guys were held back intentionally and held still and told to wait until the temperatures got to a certain point, until this thing reached as hot of a fire as we could get, and we had a sustained exhaust coming out of the top of the door. We wanted to see if a single 1 3/4 while flowing and moving, opposite of horizontal ventilation, could go in to deal with a shielded fire, because you cannot see the seat of the fire. You have to go in, turn right again, and deal with the fire. It's a shielded fire. So you can see it's an exhaust at the top of the door. A little bit of an intake, but you watch when they engage it, the same phenomenon. They engage it, break the back of it, and look what happens. Now they're flowing and moving the whole time. So what is this? That's all cooling coming in behind him. And the people on the line can see. And the person pushing him in, looking back, sees this. But if you don't have the ability to move and flow a line, this is not what you should be playing around with. Questions on that? Does that make sense and answer that? So if you are going to do it, understand what it does. This is the fire that we use, the picture we use for our whole department. One thing of advice I'll give when discussing tactics at single-family dwellings, always frame it up. Always frame it up. Always use a picture. Always use a video, and use the same one. One thing that did when we all got in the same room right here and we all started talking is it took the devil's advocate out of the fight. Some people didn't want to talk. And some people eventually were honest, and they said, I don't know. I don't know. And they would say stuff like, well, you know, what would you do here? Well, I don't know. Depends on a lot of things. Well, like what? Well, like time of day. Well, Colombo, it looks like it's daytime. Right? And then, well, where's my hydrant? Well, where do you want it to be? Well, what's my staffing? Good. Right? You see what I'm saying? So we frame them up. This is the picture. This is what we used. And we said, how would everybody handle this fire? You know what we found out? We were all over the place. And we had to slowly get to the same place on this one. If we arrive with 4, if our first alarm is coming, if this fits, then what do we do? And can we be in there right now? Anybody in the room think you can be in there right now? But my baby's in there. Does that change anything? Be like, yes, ma'am. We'll go in there in a minute, but first we have to cool that, right? Can we be in here? All day. All day. What's keeping that fire in here? the building construction, right? And what's the fire doing? Trying to disassemble the building construction. In our area, we tend to have sheetrock in the top. But if there's no sheetrock, it's degrading up. Where is that fire going? The attic? Where else? The man door, but where else? And this was the key. And you look at some of the line of do this. Yes, door control is an important thing. And yes, understanding that interior door is going to be failing. But understanding how this fire moves, it will keep crews from getting jammed up adjacent or above this fire. Where else is that fire going? The attic, yes, but where else? Through the door and the walls. Is it coming through the wall right here if that's just sheetrock? You see what I'm saying? But if your people are in there searching in that room and it's coming through the bathroom because there's no sheetrock on the garage side, is that a problem for them not to think that way? You see what I'm saying? If we just think that door, then we lose the focus of what the fire could be doing. We lose, especially in the 2 stories. If you get above a 2-story and you go to the ones that are on the back side of that, it's coming in down low on you. It's coming right there. And if you don't know that, it could be coming right through there right now, and you open that door to come in to search that room, and there's your exhaust. And this room lights off. So it's not just the doors, it's coming through the building construction. We need to control it. So we had to come up with a plan and say, how would we handle this? We, not everybody else, just us. Same picture. Attack corridor, that's from our rig to our door, right? Where are we going in? It's based off our arrival snapshot, confirmed by our 360. We really even broke it down and said, what are we doing on our 360s? What are we looking for, right? There was like a 15-point class about what you look for, and it was confusing, and nobody could remember it. And then we all agreed that really we're looking for wind influence that could change the fire behavior. We're looking for below grade. Is there a fire below our crews? Because that's going to kill them. And is there anybody on the backside of this building that needs immediate rescue right now with the resources at scene? Everything else really just kind of helps frame things up. So if we got our 360 in line with what our people are doing at the door when they force the door, everything cleans up. Keeps consistent with the goal of locate, confine, and if appropriate, extinguish, right? So locate, move in, find, it's in the garage. Do they open the garage door and put the fire out? Mm-mm. They hold up right there. And then we protect the search behind them. That's that first line's goal. Second line puts the fire out. Use interior doors to confine and support the search. Opening and closing doors breaks up the fuel chain, keeps everything clean, and sustains any survivable space that's in there right now. What kind of room is this right here? What do you guys think? What's that? So like, because where's the front door? So what do most front doors open into? Living room, right? And then straight back from the living room is what? Kitchen, dining room area. So this is a big open area, right? Or a great room with no doors. So when we look at windows, we need to have the ability to look at a window quickly and say, should that window be attached to a compartment that has a door? Yes or no? Quickly. Because that's going to help us understand confinement. It's going to help you understand line placement. If you shoot water in that window, is that a bad thing? There's no door in that room. It's like wide open. If you open that door and shoot water in that door, is that a bad thing? If you can do them both at equal time speed, is that a big deal which one you do? Because that room's totally going, isn't it? What about this room right here? What is this room? What kind of room is that? You have to be specific. Door or no door? Should. Should. Okay, so a room with a door. Can we be in there right now? If what? If the door's closed, or we can close it, right? If we can get in there, bless you. If we can get in there, can we be in here right now? What's this room over here? Does it have a door or not? Potentially. I would say more than potential. I would say based on the curtains, what this taught me is I did a 360 one time and I came to this window, similar to this, and I was so close to the building because of this fence that I couldn't get the perspective that I had 25 feet back that my driver had. So this made me lean back against fences sometimes. If I have a question, I lean back and I look at the other windows, and then I go back to it. Could you go in there right now? All day long. Does that make sense? So this is how we talk at non-events. Tactical benchmarks for us, they match up. Locate, confine, and extinguish. They match up with RECIO. Compartmentalization for you guys on this. How is it broke up? What kind of room is that that's on fire right now? So if you pull a line to the front door that's opposite of that kitchen and force the front door and flow water in there, what will you do? Is there any bit of this fire that you couldn't put out with your first line from the front door? Right. So is there a need to pull a line to the backyard? Is there anything that would cause you to pull a line to the backyard, though? What if there's a heavy wind from this side coming that way? What happens when you open that front door then? Yeah, you see what I'm saying? So if we have a heavy wind in my department, that would bring a line around back first, hit this, then move in. Because we can't activate a mayday in the beginning stages. And we'll give that little bit up right now instead of have that thing rolling over. Because this house in my area would be on the water. It'd be funneled in. Our rigs would be tight. And we'd have about 25, 30 feet of the front of this house to work. And if we open up that door and it becomes an exhaust, we're not at a good spot. What's the building construction of this? How would you guys describe it? Split level or split entry? Well, it's up to you guys. For my department, this is a split entry, and then we use the other ones, we call them tri-levels. Yeah, so if it's a split level, that just means to everybody in your department that the entry splits. And that's why we chose the word entry, because some of our guys don't have building construction. So as soon as they hear split entry, for them, they're like, oh, the doors, that's that one with the door between the windows. It's like, I don't care if that's all they say. God bless them. Right? Let them be. So we chose split entry. So now we look at this, and now we look at those W's, right? Where would your first line go, which one, and why? So at your department, when you pull up to this fire, where would your first hand line go, what would it be, and why would it go there? Okay, 1.75" to the front door, and what would be their mission? Because what happens at split entries in about 3.5 feet inside? You have a decision, don't you? Do you want them to make that decision before they go in or after? Okay, so before. How about right now? How about everybody can make that decision right now? So what does that line do? Does it go upstairs or does it go downstairs? Everybody who says upstairs, raise your hand. Everybody who says downstairs, raise your hand.
You might have a quick peek there.
I love it. I'm into quick peeks.
I'd send my firefighter out, but just I'm gonna have a quick look.
So when you look at exhausts, the reason we go into so big into exhausts is this right here. When you're evaluating intakes and exhausts, right? So if you have a door and you force that door right there, if there's a fire in that room and we're all heading in there, if I force that door and I've got smoke and heat and even fire, 1/4 of the door and up, what does that mean in relation to the level I'm on if I've got 1/4? Where's the fire at? It's above us, right? Half and half. With black crap coming at us and fresh air going in. Where's this fire at? Is it above, same level, or below? If I open that door and almost all of the doors in exhaust with fire, where is that fire? Below me. Is it imperative that everybody in your apartment understands that right there?
I was chatting. What did you say?
No big deal. We open the door. Half and half is what? Same level. What's the full exhaust? If you open it, and what's the importance of everybody knowing that? We had to take a stance to say that we must know that that exhaust is basically a no-go until you confirm it. We're not going to go down an exhaust until we confirm it. We can do it, but we have to confirm it. You have to say, yeah, I'm taking this thing head on. Because what we had happen at these fires right here, what did I say we go to the most of? Attached garage fires. Where did this fire start? Remember what I said about early and late? When the fire grows and then dips and then grows and then dips, what does it always leave on the outside of the house when it's exiting early on? Smoke staining. So what happens with that smoke staining? It stays, but the smoke goes away, so our eyes don't see it. So you have to look for any smoke staining around because that meant at some point what was going on. You had an exhaust. One thing I can say from watching every one of the experiments of the most recent UL is that the same thing happened every time. It went up, it looked amazing, and then it boiled down to literally almost nothing. But it was a ticking time bomb inside. The temperatures were good. The ability for it to take off was good, but it choked down. So what's this right here, this gray stuff? What's causing smoke to come from a house that low? How big of a fire would you need upstairs to force all that fire downstairs and out that front door? How big of a fire would you need upstairs, honestly? And do you see it? You see what I'm saying? So this is the one that got us. This was our nemesis right here. We were hitting this thing, crushing it, and running upstairs. And then what happened? Downstairs took off. Remember what the first slide said about fire attack mindset? It's below you until proven otherwise. What proves otherwise? Our eyes, our 360, hitting this, and then the quick peek. You hit this, and then you look down. And if you see anything coming up those stairs, but you're already here ready to go down from the beginning, because what else makes sense to have that much fire coming out the front door? A split entry? How much ceiling is above that front door? Is this making sense what I'm saying about this picture specifically? And then what does it mean? What does this ladder mean? Anybody got kids? Yeah, somebody could have gone in, right? If that's my daughter's room, we got a problem. If it's my son's room, he's gone. No good. Right there. See the smoke staining from the previous amount of smoke coming out. So that's the key to understand that below concept, Line placement, we have to be ready. One of our guys at the very first fire had it wasn't a split entry, it was a split level, the 3 different levels, right? Garage down here, then the main area, then the house above over here, where that's at. Force the front door. First time ever, first in. Force the front door. The entire thing came out as an exhaust. He hooked the front door, closed the door, backed off the porch, met the company officer, and said, the fire's below us. We already knew it was a garage fire because it was completely going. And he said, the door's gone. First fire. First fire. No experience. How was he able to do that? Wasn't magic. Wasn't luck. It was doing this. Just looking and understanding how this stuff builds and works. And that's basically it right there. All right, we're like 12:20. I think we're beyond what we're supposed to go. But if you have questions, I'm not going anywhere. If you guys want to stay and ask questions, any other videos you want to see. If you have questions about what we covered, let me know. Anything doesn't make sense, please, please, please read all the stuff that's coming out. The first study, the second study. Pay attention to the studies that are coming up. If you believe the UL study said about exterior attacks, just know that there's one coming up that's already been formed about interior attacks. And you'd hate to make a lot of decisions before that one comes out. Because there's actually one, the PPV one leads into that one. During the PPV study, we actually did interior attacks at UL. And they oddly enough work really, really well. Even with the fan sometimes. Sometimes not so much.